As the NBA season is getting underway, I want to look at the Western Conference. Now, obviously, the West is more tougher than the East. Obviously, the West is more harder to come out of the West than it is the East. It's harder to get that. It's harder to get that eighth spot in the West than it is the East. And the Lakers are the favorites to come out the West, and rightfully so. They are. I mean, they are the defending champions. LeBron is playing out of his mind right now at 36 years old in his 18th season, which is something to talk about. And they picked up Dennis Schroeder. They picked up Montrezl Harrell. Dennis Schroeder, he's gonna take that load off LeBron James. He's gonna take that because Dennis Schroeder, he can create for others, which is great, and he can create for himself, which is always a good thing. And we all know Montrezl Harrell. He's great. He's always gonna be great coming off the bench. He brings that energy, and he can score. He can really be that guy off the bench that can put up points for the Lakers, which is a good thing for LA. But I want to talk about the Clippers right now because I feel like because last season and how the Clippers looked last season, I feel like people are just counting the Clippers out. People don't have faith in the Clippers, and I can agree with I agree with that because last season I predicted the Clippers to win the championship. I thought the Clippers were deeper than the Lakers. I thought the Clippers had a better team than the Lakers because last season the Lakers had LeBron and AD. They didn't have a consistent third option last season. They had, some nights it was Danny Green, some nights it might have been Kyle Kuzma, but they never had a consistent, third option. And and the Clippers was a much better defensive team, specifically on the perimeter. Cause you had Kawhi Leonard, who is, one of the greatest defenders of all time. Paul George, who is one of the elite offenders in the NBA right now, and Patrick Beverly, who is the best point guard, the best point guard defensive player in the league. So I thought that the Clippers would beat the Lakers in 7 last season, but obviously they couldn't even get there. They couldn't even get past the Denver Nuggets, which is, you know, it's it's crazy. And I feel like Paul George is under the most pressure this season. People say Giannis is under the most pressure because that big contract he signed with the Bucks, and I understand that, but I feel like because of Paul George, the way he played last season, and how much criticism he got last season, and just what people said about Paul George last season, calling him Pandemic P, calling him trash, garbage, all of that talk that everybody was saying about Paul George, I felt like all the pressure was on him to respond this season, and I feel like he is responding good this season. I feel like Paul George is responding. He is playing great this season. I mean, the guy is he's at what 50% from 3 point range. He's shooting about 50% from three, which is crazy, And obviously, and like I said, man, obviously I'm not high on the Clippers like I was last season. Like I thought it would be the Clippers versus the Bucks last season, and I was wrong. So obviously I'm not as high on the Clippers as I was last season, but they still got Kawhi Leonard. they still got Paul George, who is a star. Like, even though Paul George played garbage, he's still a star. Like, Paul George is still a great player. Like, I don't care how bad he was last season. He is still a good player, a great player. And Kawhi Leonard is a superstar in this league. And like Kawhi Leonard is not. He shouldn't be off the hook either, because Kawhi Leonard played just as bad as Paul George. So we can't forget about Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is in the hot seat just like Paul George is. Kawhi Leonard is the best player on the Clippers. So Kawhi Leonard, he has to show up this season. The whole team, the Clippers are under the most pressure this season. They are. The Clippers are under the most pressure. Now the Clippers actually gotten better from last season. I know I said the Lakers gotten better, but the Clippers gotten better too. I mean, they picked up Serge Ibaka, who was an upgrade from Montrezl Harrell. They picked up some good shooters to go along with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. They picked up Nicholas Batum, who is playing great for them. They picked up Luke. What his name is? Luke Kennard. I forget his name, but that guy's been playing good for them. So I think the Clippers gotten better. They still got Lou Williams. They got Reggie Jackson. They got Jamalco Green, who's been shooting the ball great for this team too. Jamalco Green. So, I feel like the Clippers, they're going to be right there again this season. Obviously, again, I'm not as high on them, but I still think they're going to be in the Western Conference this season. I know I said it last season, but I truly believe that this season we are going to get the Lakers and Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. I believe that we are going to get the LA battle in the Western Conference.